All right. Welcome everyone. Happy Monday. Hopefully you guys are ready to get the week started off with a bang. That's one thing I love about these Mindset Mondays is well, quite selfishly, it helps me kick off the week better when I get to teach these things. So I appreciate all of you taking the time to be here today. So let's jump right in. So today what I wanted to talk about is optimism. And where this came from for me was just, I don't know, this was just like 4 or 5 days ago. I woke up, had one of those waking dreams, and somehow this whole, whatever you want to call it, lesson or whatever you want to call it that I'm going to talk about today just popped into my mind. And when that happens to me, I tend to kind of trust my gut and say, all right, let's lean into this a little bit. Maybe there's something here. And so the first thing that I want to talk about here is, what is optimism? And, I want to make it clear that my definition of optimism, and by the way, this is all obviously just my opinion and my experience of growing optimism in my own life and in my own business. But my definition of optimism is not joy, happiness. It's not always being in a good mood or always feeling like doing the work. That's not optimism. Those are totally different things. Now, optimism can maybe help create some of those things in our life. It can help us go down that path, but optimism itself is a completely different thing. Optimism is the way I see it is kind of a type of faith. It's a way of looking into the future and saying, even though today's hard, I know I can still do this. I know that there's still light at the end of the tunnel. I believe that something good is coming. I believe that my hard work is going to pay off. I believe that I'm doing the right things, and having faith that the goals that you set for yourself, the outcomes that you set for yourself will turn out exactly how they're supposed to. That's optimism. And so why do we need optimism? Why is it important? Well, first of all, on the surface level, what I would say is, I've been very, very lucky in the last, I don't know, 6 months or so to just be in rooms with people who are very successful. And it doesn't mean that I want to emulate every aspect of their life, but there's one common thread that I've seen that to me, I do want to emulate, and that is their optimism. When you look at really successful people, and it doesn't matter in what aspect, successful teachers, successful business people, successful parents, whatever it is, they have optimism. They can look to the future and be like, yeah, there's a setback right in front of me, but that's all right. I've overcome it before. I'll overcome it again. That's optimism. And it is a skill set that can be developed. And how do I know that? Well, I remember when I was in college, I still, I'm almost 45 now. So this was over 20 years ago. And I still remember this conversation as if it was yesterday. I don't know why it landed on me so hard that day, but we were sitting around, in the living room talking about stuff. And I was just kind of being negative. And one of my roommate's girlfriends looked at me and she goes, Dan, you're so negative. And I'm like, I'm not negative. I'm real. And I meant it. I was just being real. I was just telling the truth. But the reality was, yeah, I was being real. Yeah, I was telling the truth, but it was my truth. It was my perception of the situation, my perception of the world, my perception of other people. It was my perception. And I was choosing to have that outlook on life. It was not an optimistic outlook on life. And you fast forward 10 years and I'm depressed. My business isn't going where it's going, where I want it to go. I'm not producing the kind of income that I want to produce. I feel like a total failure. And everything in my mind, everything that I looked at was a problem. I got to cross the street. That's a problem. I got to make money. That's a problem. I have to be a dad. That's a problem. I've got to do this. That's a problem. Everything was a problem. My viewpoint of the world was problematic. It was the exact opposite of optimism. And it led me down to a path to where I finally had to make a decision in my life. Like, I'm either going to get better, I'm going to change, or I'm going to stay where I'm at. And I made a decision that day that one day that I was going to get better. I was going to become more optimistic. That's not what I told myself at the time, but that's essentially what I was telling myself. And here's what it has created for me. Since then, this was maybe almost 10 years ago. I really dove into changing my mindset. I wanted to learn, how do I get more energy? How do I influence people in a positive way? How do I keep my mindset solid even when everybody else is freaking out around me? Like, how do I do all this stuff? And so I set out on a journey to figure out how to do that. I hired a bunch of coaches. I went to therapy. I learned how to meditate. I did more physical activity. I lost weight. I started eating healthier. I started doing all of these things to improve my life, because every little thing that I improved slowly over time made my life a little bit better. Now, I would say, while I still sometimes fall back into my old habits of negativity and the problematic mindset, optimism, I would say I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic of the future. And here's some of the benefits of being optimistic. And then I'm going to go through 10 strategies that I came up with to help us become more optimistic. So here's the benefits I've experienced as I've done this work on myself, as I've worked to become more optimistic, as I've worked to sharpen my skills and my mindset and build a foundation to build everything else off of. I have more energy. I believe that, we have a finite amount of energy in our world, in our life. However, I think a lot of us aren't tapping into the energy that's actually possible to us. And here's how I know that's true. Think about when you woke up one day, maybe it was today, I don't know, and you're just like, oh my gosh, I've got a laundry list of things to do. By the way, that's kind of how I woke up today. I've got a really, really busy week, had some things fall in my lap that are, going to be good, but, I had to do work this morning just to get my head right, to be here with you today, to be on my, all the appointments that I have to do, to show up the way that I want to show up. I had to do work to do that. Anyway, the point is, think of one of those days where you wake up like that and your energy is low and you're not sure what to do. Okay. And then think about a day when you woke up early because you were so excited. Maybe you were a kid and you were going to skiing, or you're going to Disneyland. Maybe this was just a few weeks ago when you're like, yes, I get to go hang out with my friends that I haven't seen in a long time. Or you're going on a trip, you're traveling to Mexico for spring break or whatever it was. Think about the difference of your energy between those 2 days. See, our mindset literally affects our energy. And so as I became more optimistic and started focusing on what's possible, then I had less days where I would wake up thinking about what's wrong. And those days that I thought about what's possible, those are the days that I had more energy. So maybe we're not creating more energy, but we're tapping into more energy. So I have experienced that. Way more energy as I've created more optimism. Number 2, better sleep. When we're optimistic, we're less worried. We're less frustrated. We're going to sleep better. This is, a fact. We're going to have a better experience of life. I already kind of shared my story. What was my experience of life when I was being problematic? Well, I was angry. I was frustrated. I was judgmental. I was depressed. And so now that I feel more optimistic, I don't wake up every day going, yay! I wish I did. Maybe I'll get there one day, but I sure as heck feel way more better, way more energized, happier, more joyful, more content than I ever have before. So you get a better experience of life, more production. Going back to that example of tapping into our energy when we're like, oh, all Eeyore about the day, we're just not going to get as much done compared to if we wake up and we're like, yeah, I might not be 100%, but man, we're going to go make something. Today's the day. I'm going to make something happen today. I don't know what, but I'm going to make something happen today. Those are 2 totally different mindsets of the exact same situation. One's going to produce more than the other. More confident. if we're producing more, we're sleeping better, we're having a better experience of life, we have more energy, we're naturally going to feel more confident. That's just it's just a natural byproduct of all of that. And our future looks brighter. Optimistic. That's kind of the definition of optimism. We look at our future and we're like, okay, I'm headed somewhere. This is good. I'm happy with this. And so all of these things I have experienced. And I want to make it abundantly clear that this is not where I started. If you knew me 10 years ago, you would be like, who is that guy? But this is a learned behavior. Optimism is a learned behavior. There was a time in my life where I would look at people who were super optimistic and I would be like, man, I'd think to myself, you're so lucky. You're so lucky that you're optimistic or you're positive or, whatever. It is not a born trait like your arms and your fingers. It's not born to you. It is created through intention. And so, and once again, I know this from experience. I have created it in my life. And so what I'd like to go over here is 10 strategies that I've learned on how to create more optimism in our lives. And I'm sure there's way more than this. I actually started with 3. I was like, yeah, I'll just talk about 3. And I was like, well, what about this and this and this and this? And I was like, all right, I'll just do 10 and I'll go through them a little bit quicker. And by the way, if at any time you have any questions or anything you want to interject, just take yourself off mute and feel free to shout it out. All right. So number 1, letting go of the outcome. So one of the things I would say probably my biggest hurdle that knocks me off the most, I have always been a very futuristic thinker. I look into the future, and that's actually good, but it can be very burdensome too, because then I forget to be in the now. And so a lot of times I look at the outcome, here's all these things that I want to do, and I'm way over here. And sometimes it feels like it's never going to happen. And so when I get into that headspace, what I've learned to do is to let go of the outcome and say, okay, hey, your future thinking and it's not helping you. Put your energy into today. So what am I going to do today? And so what I'm really talking about here is channeling your focus into a very narrow space. So maybe it's like lately what I've been focusing on is I want to talk to one person about EXP and one person about real estate every single day. So no matter what happens, if I can do those 2 things every single day, I know that I've made progress. It might not be the progress that I want to make that day, but it's a very small, easily attainable goal so that I can focus on today. The other thing that I've been doing is I've just been saying, I already said it today, is today's the day. The day for what? It's just today's the day. We're going to make something happen today. Today's the day. And so I have these little skills and strategies and tactics that I have intentionally implemented into my life to make sure that I don't get lost in the outcome. Because when I get lost in the outcome, my energy tanks, I become less productive, I become less optimistic, and things go downhill. So number 1, let go of the outcome. Focus small, focus on today. Tomorrow will take care of itself. I promise you. I used to tell my basketball team when I was coaching high school basketball, forget about the score. Focus on what you have control over. Your mechanics, the small, focus small, and the scoreboard will take care of itself. All right. Replacement. So somebody on our team actually brought this up on our Wednesday meeting, and I liked the phrase replacement, so I'm stealing it and putting it in here. But it starts with awareness. So I have to catch myself going, oh man, you're stuck in the future. Bring it back. I have to bring awareness to the problem first. And so that takes self-reflection. That's where coaching, therapy, whatever it is, that's where that stuff comes into play, because they can hold up a mirror to you and be like, hey, look, you're doing it again. And you can go, oh, yeah. That's right. Okay. And then we can adjust. And so for me, one of my thoughts that I used to have a lot is, this is never going to work. Here we go again. Oh my gosh, this isn't going to, whatever. It was these negative thoughts about like things not falling into place the way that they were supposed to. And so one of the very first strategies that I learned was catch yourself saying this And as soon as I catch myself saying it, you replace it with something else. So I used to say a lot, this is too hard. That was a big one for me. This is too hard. I can't do this. It's too hard. And so when I would catch myself doing that, I would reverse it and I would just say, no, I got this. I know I can do this. I can do this. I can do this. And ultimately, then what it turned into is, what am I going to do about it? Okay, great. This sucks. Cool. Now what? Instead of saying this sucks, this isn't working, I'm tired of this, I'm so sick of this, I can't keep going this way, da 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 da. Okay, great. What am I going to do about it? That's a replacement. So I'm taking those negative thoughts and I'm replacing them with something that's going to move me forward. Sleep and rest. So, there's a lot of content out there saying, wake up earlier, work more hours. The reason you're not successful is because you're not working enough and blah, 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 blah. Cool. I get some of that. However, if we're not rested, which means we're not drinking right before we go to bed, we're not eating a big meal right before we go to bed, we're getting 8 hours of sleep, we're waking up in the morning and we're drinking a glass of water, before we drink our cup of coffee, we're eating properly, right? We're taking care of our mind, we're taking care of our body, we're exercising every day. That's all part of rest. And so if we're not rested, we're not going to be successful. Once again, this is a learned behavior. And if this is something that's important to you, then it's time to figure it out and commit to it, right? Commit to making your life better through more sleep and more rest. Because if you're anything like me, when I'm tired and I'm not rested, I'll stare at my computer screen for like 10 minutes and I'll kind of like snap out of it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what have I been doing? I haven't done jack. That's my indicator. Okay, I probably need to go take a nap, and I'll go take a 20-minute power nap in the middle of a busy day just to make sure that I'm rested, because then I can focus small and very intently over an extended period of time, rather than just staring at my computer screen blankly for 8 hours. I would venture a guess that in a 40-hour work week, most people probably work 15 to 20 hours. The other half of the time is doom scrolling or, trying to find emails or talking to people on the phone that, but gossiping, right? Or whatever it is, water cooler talk. So if we're focused, if we're rested, I should say, it allows us to focus more. So if we work 20 hours, we get as much done as everybody else gets in 40 hours. And now we got 20 hours to go screw around. And that'll build confidence, by the way. I also, I don't know about you guys, but when I'm not rested, my energy is like in the tank. It's hard for me to get optimistic. And so sleep and rest is really important to our energy coming up. Being present, I've already kind of touched on this a little bit. When we're forward thinking, then it can create angst. We're not there yet. I don't know if I'll ever get there, those kinds of thoughts. And so if we can bring our attention back to the present and just say, okay, great, but I'm not there yet. I'm here. What do I need to do right now? That presentness can create optimism, because it's like, hey, I might not be there yet, but today I did this, this, and this. Cool. All right. I make progress. That can create optimism. If we see progress, at least for me, that makes me more optimistic. Community. So going back to this idea of like catching yourself in the story, if you don't have a coach, if you don't have a therapist, or you can't afford them or whatever, cool. Who are you spending time with that can reflect these things back to you? Who do you have in your life who can call you on your BS? Spend more time with that person. and be open when they call you on your BS. That girl, that I talked about in college who called me on my BS, I was like, screw you, you can't tell me. I'm not negative. And I was like full fight. And I got nothing out of it until 20 years later, right? But if we're open to that feedback and they're like, hey, there it is again, your future thinking, you're tired. I think you need some sleep. Man, you're really negative today. Like, instead of like lashing out and fighting back, take that and go, oh man, you know what? You're right. Now, how can I replace this? How can I take what I'm doing and replace it with something that's going to make me more optimistic? So surround yourself with the right people. Those energy vampires, man, I'll tell you what, as bad as it feels sometimes to cut them out of your life because you want to help them and all those kinds of things, man, your life is going to be so much better when you cut the vampires out. We just don't have the bandwidth to deal with them. We got too much going on. We need to hang around with people who are healthy and optimistic and inspire us to be better. Healthy eating and healthy living. So how does this help us become more optimistic? Well, number one, we're physically going to feel better. You know, I'm 6'5". My heaviest was just over 230 pounds. I now range right about 190, 195. So that means I lost 40 pounds, and I'm 6'5", so I carried it well, right? But when I started losing that weight and started getting healthy and eating better and doing yoga and stretching so that like in the morning I get up and I'm not like, oh my God, like I can actually move. Man, that for sure makes me more optimistic. It makes me feel like I can play basketball until I'm 60. It literally affects our energy. Like when I eat, a big dessert or something the night before, I feel it the next day. When I drink 3 beers with my buddies, I feel it the next day. These things absolutely affect our energy. So if we want to be optimistic, taking care of our body is just as important as taking care of our soul, taking care of our mind. It's our vehicle. And so if you're having trouble getting optimistic, maybe this is a good place to start. How can you become more healthy in your body? Working out. So this is another thing that kind of obviously goes along with the healthy eating and living, but I put this as a separate one because working out is something, it's an aspect of that, but it's kind of a different aspect of it. Working out is physical activity. I was just, I climbed the incline yesterday, which I've never done before, down in Colorado Springs. And man, it was fun and challenging. And, for those of you that don't know, it's 2,700 steps, like straight up the side of a mountain. So it's a thing. It's tough. But one of the guys and I were talking, and he plays basketball as well. And we were talking about that feeling that you get when you haven't played basketball in a couple weeks, and then you start running up and down the court, and you get that pain in the bottom of your lungs, and it's all the little sacs inside of your lungs that have kind of gone dormant. They're like, well, we don't need these guys. And then all of a sudden you work out again and they open back up, and it's a little painful, but it's like a good pain, and you kind of cough up a little bit of stuff. I know that's gross, but you guys get where I'm going with this, right? It's that getting out there and physically moving and pushing our body, all of a sudden that opens everything up, and it literally releases endorphins, which are going to make us more optimistic. So it will physically make us more optimistic. It will physically give us more energy. And so working out is a great way to create optimism. And if playing basketball isn't your thing, it doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter what you do. Yoga, stretching, getting outside and walking around every morning and getting that sunlight on your face. There's a ton of research that shows how important getting sunlight directly into your eyes in the morning is, without glass in front of you or sunglasses, like getting it right on your face and in your eyes is really, really important. So something as simple as that, walking down to the mailbox to get your mail every morning, which just forces you to get out of your house early, that's a form of working out. Start there and then slowly work up. Get a trainer, whatever it is. But the more you do physical activity on a daily basis, the more optimistic you'll be. Self-talk. This one's kind of interesting because it's, what do you say to yourself? But in two different distinctions. What do you say to yourself when things are going good? And what do you say to yourself when things are going bad? Right? So there's this concept of self-sabotage. I am a self-sabotager. We all are. We all do it. Like, hey, things are going so great. Like, how can I throw a hand grenade into this thing and blow it up? And it sounds crazy, but we do it all the time because it's comfortable to be where we were, and it's uncomfortable to be where we're going. And so even though the success feels good, it's different, and that makes us uncomfortable. We would rather sabotage it to feel comfortable than stay in the uncomfortableness, even though it's better for us. It's kind of crazy, right? But we all do it. And so I actually caught myself doing this probably about 8 months ago. I was like, I could feel things were going well. And then I could feel my energy going, oh, I wonder if it's going to sustain. I wonder if I'm going to be able to keep doing this. I hope something doesn't go wrong. I hope the da, 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 da. And I caught myself and I was like, there it is. There's your self-sabotage. I don't do that anymore. I literally said that to myself. I don't do that anymore. And over the course of about 6 months, I kept noticing myself. There it is. There's that self-sabotage. I don't do that anymore. I don't self-sabotage. I'm going to create this thing. And I replaced it. I replaced that negative thought of self-sabotage with where I'm going and the optimism of what's happening in the future. And then I came back to what am I going to do right now about it? That's how I replaced those thoughts. I didn't fight them and say, no, no, no. I replaced them. I said, okay, great. I see you, but I don't do that anymore. I do this instead. And I replaced it. If you don't replace it and you just fight it, it's never going to go away. By the way, we have to address it. We have to see it and make the adjustment. And then, or what do you say to yourself that's bad? We've already kind of talked about this. I'm not good enough. I'm not strong enough, whatever it is, catch yourself in that and don't fight it and say, no, I can't think like that. And just like turn your head. That won't fix anything. Oh, there's that thought. I see you. It's okay. But I don't do that anymore. Instead, I'm going to think this and then think that thing and just replace it every single time. You do that for a couple months, that old thought, it just magically disappears. I've done this hundreds of times, so I know that it works. The content that you're watching, does it pick you up? Does it distract you? Does it entertain you? Does it encourage you? I'm not saying what you should or shouldn't watch. I get on Facebook and I watch the reels and stuff sometimes. We all do. But the question is, are you watching a lot of content that's full of drama and murder and hate and anger? Are you watching the news that's just like bombarding you with negative content constantly? Are you really engaging that? Are you, engaged with all the sports and then you're watching sports for, 8 hours a day and then you're going and talking to everybody about sports and, like what is the content that you're watching? And once again, it's not that any of it is good or bad, but just take stock. What are you consuming on a content basis? And what do you want that to look like? Because if the idea is I want to be more optimistic, then the content should be stuff that's from optimistic people, from people who are doing the things that you want to do. Follow them, watch what they're doing, copy what they're doing. Just take that information in, and even if it's similar, right? Just keep taking it in because it's going to make you more optimistic. And then the last one, develop an intentional strategy. So if, once again, this is if the goal is to be optimistic, we have to have intentional strategy. We talked about some of the things on how to do that. But one of the things that can really help us be more optimistic is if we have an intentional strategy for where we're going in the future. So, this is where I'm going with my business, with my relationships, with my energy, with my health, whatever it is, and saying, I want to fix these things. Here's my intentional strategy. And if you don't know how to do that, we work at a company, by the way. I truly believe EXP is the best real estate company by far in the industry because we have immediate access to a myriad of people who are doing the things that we want to do, who will coach us and help us for free. Because when you win, they win. When you win, I win. When I win, you win. That's the idea. So we have these resources around us. If you don't know how to develop the intentional strategy that you need, reach out to somebody. You don't have to be a lone wolf. There's plenty of opportunity here for you to learn the things that you need to learn to become the person that you want to become. And when you have that intentional strategy in play, when I have that intentional strategy in place, I feel better about myself. I feel more confident. I feel more optimistic about the future. And then a curveball comes in and I go, okay, great. What do we need to do about this? We create an intentional strategy to work with that curveball. Now I feel more confident. I feel more optimistic. And the more hurdles that I overcome, the more confident that I become, the more optimistic I become because I realize how powerful I am. And the same thing is possible for you. If I can do it, you can do it. If I can go from the depths of depression to where I'm at today in my mindset, you can do it too. And what I can tell you is, being on the flip side, I would much, much, much rather be where I am today than where I was 10 years ago. I enjoy my life much more today, as imperfect as it is. So just keep in mind here, you don't have to do all 10 of these things. 10 is a lot. That will overwhelm you. But if there was one thing that really stood out to you today as you were going through these, just focus on that one. And if you need support with that, feel free to reach out to me. But just pick one thing that stood out and start working on that one thing. And then when you master that a little bit, then you can add a second thing and a third thing and all that. And if you do that consistently over the course of a period of time, it will just get better and better and better and better and better. There's never an end to getting better. This isn't about fixing any of us. We're not broken. It's just about how do we get better over a period of time. And if we do that, it just continues to get better. So sorry I went a few minutes over, but appreciate all of you for being here. And if any of you ever want to talk more about this stuff, you have a resource right here. Reach out anytime. Have a great week, guys.
If you'd like more information or to get connected to the Agent Power Huddle, join our free Facebook group. This call was designed for the agents in our EXP organization, but open to any agent from any brokerage. If you're a guest and you're interested in learning more about EXP or our specific resources within the Agent Collective, reach out to the person who invited you to this call to get more info. Produced by the Agent Collective Media Network.